I made her private photo, our screensaver, petty revenge. My days at TechCorp were usually a predictable cycle of password resets, printer jams, and explaining again why restarting your computer solves 90 of problems. I'm Mark, one of the IT guys, and generally, I like my job. Until Brenda entered the picture. Brenda was the marketing manager, a title she wore like a crown, constantly reminding everyone of its importance. She was the embodiment of corporate entitlement, demanding immediate attention for the most trivial tech issues, while simultaneously treating us like we were barely above the level of trained monkeys. It started small. A slightly condescending tone when she asked for help, a pointed sigh when we couldn't fix her problem in 5 seconds, a habit of taking credit for our solutions during meetings. But it escalated quickly. She'd call our direct lines repeatedly, even when she knew we were on other calls. She'd CC Mr. Thompson, the head of marketing, on emails complaining about our lack of urgency, even if the issue was something she could have Googled herself. Kevin, a junior member of our team, bore the brunt of her abuse. He was young and eager to please, but hopelessly outmatched by Brenda's aggressive personality. She'd publicly berate him for not understanding her vaguely worded requests, reducing him to a stuttering mess. David, my closest friend in IT, and I tried to shield him, but Brenda was relentless. One particular Tuesday, Brenda's computer decided to throw a tantrum during a crucial presentation. I was already on a call with a VIP client who had somehow managed to spill coffee all over his laptop when Brenda began blowing up my phone. I tried to politely explain the situation, promising to get to her as soon as possible. That wasn't good enough for Brenda. She stormed down to our department, her face a mask of fury. "My presentation is ruined because of your incompetence," she shrieked, attracting the attention of everyone in the open plan office. I calmly explained that I was dealing with another urgent matter, but she wouldn't listen. "This is more important," she insisted, her voice dripping with venom. My presentation could make or break this quarter. I finally managed to wrap up the call with the coffee-soaked laptop and raced to Brenda's office. After a frantic 20 minutes, I got her computer working again, just as Mr. Thompson was walking in to give her a pep talk before the presentation. She barely acknowledged my presence, simply waving me away as she launched into a saccharine sweet explanation to Mr. Thompson about how valuable the IT team is. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I found a new email from Brenda in my inbox. I sighed, bracing myself for another complaint. But this wasn't a complaint. It was a picture. A picture of Brenda, wearing nothing but a lacy negligee, posed provocatively on her bed. My blood ran cold. The subject line read, "Maybe this will get your attention next time, peasant." I stared at the image, trying to process what I was seeing. It was clearly meant for her husband, Richard, some bigwig lawyer with deep pockets. But why send it to me? Was this some kind of twisted power play? A way to remind me of my place in the corporate hierarchy? I felt a surge of anger, hotter and more intense than anything I'd felt before. This wasn't just about work anymore. This was personal. This was a blatant attempt to humiliate and degrade me. I showed the email to David. He stared at the picture, his jaw hanging open. "Dude, what the hell?" he finally managed to say. "That's insane." "Tell me about it," I replied, my voice tight with rage. "I'm going to HR," David said immediately. "This is harassment, plain and simple." I hesitated. I knew he was right, but I was afraid. Afraid of retaliation, afraid of making things worse, afraid that nothing would actually happen. HR was notoriously slow and bureaucratic. Brenda was a master manipulator, with powerful allies in the company. I could see her spinning the story, painting me as the creepy IT guy who was obsessed with her. "I don't know, David," I said, running a hand through my hair. "I just don't trust them to do anything about it." "Then what are you going to do?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "Just let her get away with it?" I didn't have an answer. I spent the next few days in a haze of anger and resentment, replaying the incident over and over in my head. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate on my work. Brenda had invaded my mind, poisoning my thoughts. Then, on Friday afternoon, fate handed me an opportunity. I got a ticket to fix Brenda's printer. Annoying, but routine. I walked to her office and found it empty. She was probably at some fancy marketing lunch, schmoozing clients and basking in the glory of her own importance. Her computer was on and unlocked. My heart started to race. A wave of vengeful thoughts flooded my mind. Delete all her files? Send embarrassing emails to her boss? Sabotage her presentation for next week? But those options felt too obvious, too risky. I needed something subtle, something that would hit her where it hurt the most, her pride. Then, it hit me. Our company used a rotating screensaver on all the computers, featuring scenic landscapes and motivational quotes. The images were stored on a shared server, managed by the IT department. All I had to do was replace one of the images with Brenda's photo. It was risky. If I got caught, I could lose my job. But the thought of seeing Brenda's face when her negligee-clad image popped up on every screen in the office was too tempting to resist. I took a deep breath and sat down at her computer. I navigated to the shared server, found the screensaver folder, and copied the picture from my email. I renamed it to match one of the existing images, and carefully uploaded it to the server, replacing the original. It was done. I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with a healthy dose of fear. I quickly deleted the email from my inbox and cleared the browser history. Then, I fixed the printer. It was just out of paper and left the office, trying to act as nonchalant as possible. The weekend was agonizing. I kept imagining the moment when the screensaver would activate, picturing Brenda's reaction. I also worried about getting caught, wondering if I had left any digital fingerprints behind. On Monday morning, I arrived at work early, my stomach churning with anxiety. I went straight to my desk and waited, trying to appear busy. Then, it happened. Around 8:30, as employees started trickling into the office, the screensavers began to activate. First one screen, then another, then another, then another. Soon, the image of Brenda in her negligee was flashing across dozens of computers throughout the building. A wave of murmurs rippled through the office. People gasped, pointed, and whispered to each other. Some were clearly shocked. Others were trying to stifle their laughter. I glanced over at David, who was staring at his screen with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. He caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. Then, the door to Brenda's office slammed open. She stormed out, her face contorted with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" she screamed, her voice echoing through the office. "Who did this?" Everyone froze, staring at her in stunned silence. Brenda scanned the room, her eyes blazing. "I want answers, and I want them now." Mr. Thompson emerged from his office, looking confused and concerned. "Brenda, what's going on?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the din. "Look," she shrieked, pointing at the screensaver on her computer. "Mr. Jed." Thompson's eyes widened in surprise. He quickly turned away, his face flushed. "This is outrageous," Brenda continued, her voice rising to a fever pitch. "Someone is trying to sabotage me. I want them found, and I want them fired." Mr. Thompson, clearly flustered, tried to calm her down. "Brenda, please. Let's handle this professionally. I'll launch an investigation immediately." He turned to me, his gaze hardening. "Mark, I need you to find out who did this, now." My heart pounded in my chest. I forced myself to meet his gaze, trying to appear calm and collected. "Of course, Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice steady. "I'll get right on it." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The IT department was under immense pressure to identify the culprit. I spent the morning running diagnostics, analyzing server logs, and interviewing employees, all while trying to maintain a convincing facade of innocence. Brenda, meanwhile, was on the warpath. She was convinced that Kevin was behind the prank and relentlessly interrogated him, accusing him of being jealous of her success and trying to ruin her reputation. Kevin, terrified and overwhelmed, struggled to defend himself. He was clearly innocent, but Brenda wouldn't listen. She had him pegged as the scapegoat, and she wasn't letting go. Sarah, the HR representative, arrived on the scene, trying to mediate the situation. She interviewed everyone involved, including me. She was surprisingly perceptive, asking pointed questions about my relationship with Brenda and my access to the screensaver folder. I stuck to my story, claiming that I had been busy with other urgent requests and had no reason to access the folder. I even feigned outrage at the incident, expressing sympathy for Brenda and condemning the perpetrator for their unacceptable behavior. Sarah seemed unconvinced. She gave me a long, searching look before thanking me for my time. That evening, I couldn't sleep. The guilt was eating away at me. I had gotten my revenge on Brenda, but at what cost? Kevin was being unfairly targeted, and I was lying to everyone around me. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let Kevin take the fall for my actions. The next morning, I went to Sarah's office and asked to speak with her privately. I sat down, took a deep breath, and confessed. Well, partially confessed. I admitted to accessing the Screensaver folder, claiming that I had only made a minor adjustment to one of the images. I said I had noticed a typo in the motivational quote and had corrected it, not realizing that I would trigger the rotation of the Screensaver. I conveniently omitted the part about uploading Brenda's photo. Sarah listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Mark, I appreciate you coming forward," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "But I don't believe you're telling me the whole story," I stammered, trying to maintain my composure. I swear, that's all I did," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah shook her head slowly. "Mark, I know Brenda can be difficult to work with," she said, "but what you did was wrong. You abused your position and violated the company's code of conduct. You could have seriously damaged Kevin's career, and you've created a hostile work environment for everyone." I hung my head in shame. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry. I'm going to have to report this to Mr. Thompson," Sarah said. "He'll decide what disciplinary action to take." I braced myself for the worst. I expected to be fired, or at least suspended, but to my surprise, Mr. Thompson was relatively lenient. He gave me a stern lecture about responsibility and ethics, and placed me under closer supervision. He also ordered me to undergo sensitivity training. Kevin was cleared of all suspicion, and Brenda's attention was diverted to damage control. But the real fallout from the Screensaver incident was yet to come. The appearance of Brenda's photo triggered a series of internal investigations into her behavior. Employees, emboldened by the public humiliation she had suffered, started coming forward with stories of her abusive conduct, her constant bullying, and her habit of taking credit for their work. Sarah, armed with this new information, presented a compelling case to Mr. Thompson and the senior management team. They were forced to acknowledge the problem and take action. Brenda was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into her behavior. Her reputation was severely damaged, and her future with the company was uncertain. I never found out what happened to the negligee picture in the end. How it was sent, why it was sent. Life at TechCorp after Brenda's departure was different. The atmosphere was lighter, less tense. People seemed more willing to collaborate and less afraid to speak their minds. I still felt a pang of guilt for my actions, but I also felt a sense of satisfaction. I had stood up to Brenda, and in doing so, I had helped create a better work environment for everyone. But the incident had also changed me. I was no longer the easygoing, conflict-avoidant IT guy I used to be. I had learned that sometimes you have to fight back, even if it means bending the rules. I also learned that revenge, even when it's petty, can have unintended consequences. While I had gotten my satisfaction, I had also risked my career and potentially harmed others. The whole experience left me with a lingering sense of unease, a feeling that I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But as I looked around the office, at the smiling faces of my colleagues, I couldn't help but feel that it had been worth it.